the last 10 years, Ethiopia has witnessed a very robust industrial development.
Ethiopia is indeed a country in a hurry to develop.
It was leadership and vision who brought us to Ethiopia.
For the private sector, there are many opportunities in Ethiopia.
Ethiopia today is a place to be.
The industry sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in Ethiopia, with an average growth of 18% per annum.
The United Nations post-2015 development agenda reinforces the international community's commitment to poverty eradication. One of the pillars of this agenda is inclusive and sustainable industrial development, a mandate given to the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. The agency chose Ethiopia and Senegal as piloting countries to implement its new mandate.
The last 10 years, Ethiopia has witnessed a very robust industrial development strategy that has been implemented, and our strategy is labor intensive, inclusive, and as well as taking into consideration our comparative advantages. So I think because of this reason, and Ethiopia has shown a remarkable progress the last 4 years by accelerating industrial development.
UNIDO recently organized a global forum in Vienna, Austria, on partnerships to scale up investment for inclusive and sustainable industrial development. Speaking at the Grand Gathering, Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn said UNIDO's partnership with Ethiopia came at a time when the country's economy is growing by leaps and bounds.
Ethiopia indeed stands to gain from UNIDO's sound technical cooperation, experience and expertise in the implementation of industrial development programs and projects. The cooperation with UNIDO comes at a time when the government of Ethiopia, its efforts for economic development transformation are geared towards enhancing gains made.
Prime Minister Haile Mariam noted that industry has taken a center stage in driving the economy.
Ethiopia's effort to create a robust foundation for industrial development have thus been gathering steam to the point that industry continues to be at the center of our development strategies and goals. In order to maximize the contribution from the industrial sector, the government has decided to focus on the development of key sectors identified, including textile and garments, leather and footwear, agro-processing, chemical and pharmaceuticals, metal and engineering, sugar and other industries.
The industry sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in Ethiopia, with an average growth of 18% per annum, with manufacturing becoming the emerging driver of the economy. There is also a push towards structural transformation of the economy. It is in tune with these endeavors that UNIDO chose Ethiopia to be one of the 2 countries to implement its inclusive and sustainable industrial development program.
Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. According to a recent UNIDO study, between 2015 and 2018, growth is expected to average 7.3%.
Ethiopia is indeed a country in a hurry to develop, and rightly so. We all do know that Ethiopia has set itself a very bold ambition of becoming a middle-income country over the next 10 years and also become a carbon-neutral, climate-resilient economy.
There is no single country in the world which has reached a high state of economic and social development without undergoing industrial transformation. It is against this backdrop that Ethiopia avails itself to foreign and domestic investors to take advantage of the extensive investment opportunities in the country.
Ethiopia is a very stable country in terms of political, social and macroeconomic condition, and we have a good governance and attractive investment law, zero tolerance to corruption, the lowest crime rate in Africa, and we have a very committed government to support the private sector, especially attraction of foreign direct investment, competitive incentive packages, and not least simple and transparent investment approval strategies.
The government of Ethiopia has prioritized industrial development in the context of the growth and transformation plan. What we do see is that the government is putting together an enabling framework to support industrialization in Ethiopia. Significant investments are being made in industrial zones, which is absolutely important, industrial parks, which is absolutely important, and good incentives are now being provided to industry to support their transformation, which is so key for the growth and transformation of Ethiopia.
The Ethiopian government has attached prime attention to scaling up the share of industry to GDP and national growth.
Our industrial development goal is to increase the share of the industrial sector as a percentage of GDP from the current 14% to 28% by 2025. And at the same time, increase the manufacturing share from the current 5% to 18% of GDP. These are an ambitious target, but vitally important to our overall objective to become a middle-income country by 2025.
Ethiopia's Industrial Development Program focuses on expanding industries in the country, building industrial zones, as well as creating linkage between agriculture and industry sectors.
While GDP1 has been led by a significant infrastructure investment, industrial sector and manufacturing will be the focus of GDP2 and GDP3. That means acceleration in private sector investment, with foreign direct investment playing a greater role than it did in the past.
The government is committed to attracting foreign direct investment, particularly in selected sectors.
For the private sector, there are many opportunities in Ethiopia. It has many advantages. First of all, from a wage standpoint, compared to other developing countries, it's extremely competitive. Rental costs are very low. Electricity costs are very low. So all those are very, very attractive.
Our countries, and the example of Ethiopia, for example, our countries have a vision about industrialization, have a plan to industrialize. They are very serious. They're making sure that their environment is good to attract investment. And you know, they're developing concrete project, bankable project to attract the public-private partnership to come to Africa and to invest in Africa. And I think that is the time to be in Africa for all the investors. So it's a call for the investor to come to Africa.
My government is highly committed to creating a stable macroeconomic environment, and which has prioritized major investments in the infrastructure sector, for example, roads and railways networks, access to energy, water supply and waste management, and irrigation. The other key measures we are directing more resources towards is the development of industrial parks.
UNIDO's Industrial Development Partnership Program is in tune with the industrial strategy of the country and will be implemented during the next 5 years GTP2 implementation period.
In the first 5 years of this implementation, the strategy will focus on upgrading the existing industries, cultivation of 65,000 small and medium-scale enterprises, and development of industrial zones to attract large and medium industries, thereby creating about 750,000 jobs within the coming 5 years. The ISID program for country partnership is clearly aligned with the industrial development strategy of Ethiopia, and will have the same time span of the growth and transformation plan 2, which is going from 2015 to 2020.
UNIDO's program aims to achieve industrialization in developing countries to eradicate poverty and create most needed jobs. The program is believed to give further steam to Ethiopia's plans to join a group of middle-income economies over the next decade.
Ethiopia very clearly has a game plan in terms of how they want to become a middle-income country by 2025. Already they are making great strides. Previously, the poverty rate was at 37%, and now it's just below 25%. That's impressive considering they've done that in just 7 years. But they also know they have several challenges, and by having a partnership with UNIDO, with multiple stakeholders, this is going to help them fast track their goal of becoming that MIC by 2025.
Ethiopia will soon fall into the middle-income country trap. So the productivity increase is really the key to attain sustainable growth.
The forum, however, cited that the country is still a long way in terms of strengthening agro-industry linkages, building more industrial parks, and enhancing value-addition industries.
Industrialization process provides backward linkages all the way down to the smallholder farmer. And these backward linkages can be created both on the input distribution as well as output marketing side of the agricultural value chain. It's all about ensuring that the private sector has the right incentives and the right enabling environment to be able to develop in a way that is a win-win proposition both for the private sector but also for the smallholder farmers of the country.
To expand and to go up the value-added chain and to create more jobs, it needs very much to have knowledge transfer, it needs innovation, it needs new technologies, and it needs financial support. All those elements are key because despite the strides they've made, Ethiopia still has challenges which it acknowledges on the infrastructure front, which is where there are still bottlenecks, for instance, as well as some other challenges. So together, by partnering with UNIDO, by having many stakeholders involved in this process, it will help Ethiopia fast-track some of its goals.
We need to direct more investment in productive capacities, building productive capacities, because this is what could make development really sustainable. For example, it was mentioned here, in Africa, we would soon have 1.1 billion people, and already some 600 billion don't have access to electricity when sunshine is so available there. And it's not expensive. So there's a huge potential there for investment.
Accelerated private sector investments and export trade have been the focus of the government. And to realize that, the government has established a private-public partnership secretariat and revised different pertinent strategies and regulations. An enabling environment has been created for the private sector to play a leapfrog contribution to industrial growth.
The role of the private sector is recognized as an engine for industrial development in the country. The government development strategy, which we call GTP, has been participatory and inclusive of the private sector. We expect even better participation during the next GTP. The current industrial development strategy and roadmap clearly seek to address some of the constraints experienced and expressed by various private sector players in a small, medium, and large scales.
There is an increased interest in Ethiopia, both from local and foreign investors, because the government has created the right environment. It has set itself a very clear vision, and it's working towards putting together the right business enabling environment to ensure that the various sectors in the country are attractive to investors. And I think the growth in the level of foreign direct investment, the level of interest that we are seeing from investors is a demonstration of the success of the government's strategy in that respect.
Participants of the forum, that include global industrialists, extended eulogy to the visionary leadership in Ethiopia in luring more investment.
It was leadership and vision who brought us to Ethiopia. And secondly, I want to say, if anybody telling you it's very easy to run a factory in Africa, then that must be a lie, because it is not easy. But how to sustain the investor in Africa as an investor? If the minister can go to the office early than the cleaner, that is what sustained us in the country to fight actually the problems together with the government, and that's how to sustain us there.
Ethiopia is one of the most serious countries in what they want to do in industrialization. You heard at the conference, Ethiopia, the late Prime Minister talking about, if you want to come to invest in Ethiopia, you have to make sure that you invest in our term, in line with our plan and so forth. So I think that Ethiopia today is a place to be. People want to be there, but they need to come within the timeline, within the conditionalities of Ethiopia, because it's about choosing your investor. It's about choosing to ensure that really this investment is contributing to the well-being of the Ethiopian, to the policies that the government put for Ethiopia, and actually the government knows what's good for Ethiopian.
The forum also took high note that developing African countries need to emulate the experience of Asian countries in fast-tracking industrialization.
In the 1950s, an average South Korean made $50 a month. Now they make more than $20,000 a month. What an enormous progress. Could this have happened without industry? Without Hyundai, without Samsung, with all these trademarks which have not dominated the world market? Could the Chinese miracle, which no one expected in the 1970s before Deng Xiaoping became the supreme leader of China, could that have happened without industries? Bringing 600-700 million people out of poverty in one generation? Never happened before in human history, but it can happen again. And that's why I start here, because it's so hopeful. No one in the 1950s predicted the rise of Korea. No one in the 1970s before Deng Xiaoping predicted the rise of China. It did happen through hard work, through smart work, and through tapping into the enormous force of manufacturing and industrialization. And it gives hope to Africa. If the Koreans could do it, if the Chinese could do it, for sure Africans can do it.
To build on the successes gained and to address the myriad challenge, scaling up a partnership with development partners and donors remains critical.
To trigger large-scale transformation, we need to encourage economies to expand from farms to factories. The agricultural sector can generate jobs in light manufacturing industries like food processing. Those industries can be labor-intensive, leading to more jobs. More jobs and higher employment mean greater social inclusion.
The UNIDO Forum has served as a milestone to attract more investors, help upgrade domestic industries, and attain international financiers.
The visibility of Ethiopia in the global arena will become very high, so it helps us to attract foreign direct investment and get support from financing institutions, and also helps us to boost our capability in terms of human as well as technological capability. So this is a very remarkable advantage to Ethiopia.
During his stay in Vienna, the heavyweight Ethiopian delegation also held bilateral talks with different leaders. While conferring with the Austrian President Heinz Fischer in Vienna, Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn said Ethiopia is keen to emulate Austria's success in building a robust economic growth that benefits the public. Hailemariam also urged Austrian investors to do business in Ethiopia. President Fischer, for his part, lauded Ethiopia's pacifying role in East Africa and the continent at large. He also asked Ethiopia to reopen its embassy in Vienna. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Hailemariam also took time to meet the newly elected European Union Commissioner for International Cooperation and Development, Neba Mimika. They discussed bilateral as well as regional issues. Mr. Mimika told Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation that Ethiopia will remain a major partner of the European Union.
Ethiopia is and will remain our major partner in development cooperation and development programs that we have developed with Ethiopia. We shall continue supporting Ethiopian development programs. Ethiopia is actually receiving the highest envelope of the European Union's development assistance among all African and Pacific and Caribbean countries. It's around 740 million euros for the next 7 years, and we shall continue this engagement, this development engagement in Ethiopia, supporting the development goals of Ethiopia. We also discussed the regional role of Ethiopia in supporting the regional stability in a really volatile region in the Horn of Africa. We appreciate very much this engagement, this this role that Ethiopia plays in the region, and we shall look forward to continue being good partners.
Prime Minister Haile Mariam has also exchanged views with the Director General of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, Mr. Leong. Haile Mariam thanked Mr. Young for selecting Ethiopia to be embraced in the agency's newly launched Sustainable Industrial Development Program. Mr. Young promised to continue supporting Ethiopia in its bid to attract more financiers to the booming industry sector in Ethiopia. In another courtesy call, First Lady Roman Tesfaye conferred with Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which promised to support Ethiopia's effort to control cancer. Roman briefed the Director General on her cancer control initiative.
Cancer control in developing countries is a very important issue for the world and for the IAEA. Your First Lady is taking an important initiative to fight against cancer. So we support certainly her initiative, and we agreed to work together. The IAEA has the expertise to train people and to provide the equipment and help to establish the plan for the cancer control. We have been working with Ethiopia and will continue to do so.